Hi guys, this is Jake here at Canadian Cutting Edge, and today we're taking a look at a Ganzo. This is the G751. Joe reminded me that I had done the review of the G750, and I'd never done this review. And the way I forgot is because the G750 and this knife look almost identical. The G750's got 3 stripes instead of 4. And it doesn't have this little piece of steel on the bottom of the blade here, or this way on the top of the blade here. That one's not a flipper. This one is a flipper. And I totally missed out on the fact that Ganzo had a flipper that was the G751. And so here we go. This knife comes in 3 colors. Green, OD green like this, black, and a big bright juicy orange. Other than that, the blade shape is the same swedge up here, the same high the same high saber grind, the same handle shape with a nice big rounded back there that really fits nicely in the hand. Same kind of jimping on the handle scales. The same knife basically, except for this guy's a flipper and a liner lock. So if you want to take a good look at this thing, stick around for the full review. If you like flippers, this is a knife that you need to look at. Ganzo doesn't have very many flippers. They've got a few. This one's actually done fairly well. There are some negatives about it, and I'll let you know about those things. But the overall design, I like this. Look at how the shape and everything is on this knife. All of those things I like about this. I really like the handle shape. I really like this big roundness back here. It helps fill in the palm of your hand. You get a really good grip on it. You know, either that forward kind of grip or, fist grip, pistol kind of grip. A lot of good grip up here with the thumb riser, that gentle jimping, but it's, aggressive jimping. You got jimping along the back spacer right there. I'll show you a close-up picture of that. Nice big lanyard hole at the very back at the end. Perfect placement for the lanyard hole, but I wish they could have modified and figured out a different place to put it so that the pocket clip could get a little closer to the end of the handle. Pocket clip, very functional, works great, feels good, grabs onto the pocket very well. Great job, except for it's a little bit too deep off of the end of the handle. I wish it was just a little closer to the end. I like this double choil up here for your index finger and your middle finger. Between that and this jimping here on the thumb, you get a really, really good purchase on this knife. This knife's not going to let go of your hand very easily. Well, your hand's not going to let go of it that easily. Even if it's wet, you've got really good grip, I think. Nice texture on the side of the handle all over the place. You've got these 4, what are supposed to be luminescent strips. They're supposed to take the energy of light and hold on to it. And then if it gets dark, you drop it on a dark forest floor or something, you should be able to see a little bit of those luminescent lines, except for they don't work that well. They really don't do much luminescence. What I generally do on my knives that have that is I peel those things out of there, and it actually helps me get a little bit better grip. See how my index finger tends to come right over that spot? And with those ridges now in there, you actually get better grip on there. I'll show you what I mean with another knife. Hopefully you can see it on this one. This is the G750, the sibling, the very close sibling. Notice this is the axis lock instead of liner lock and flipper. So no flipper tab over here. Other than that, it's the same. And other than having 4 stripes, it's only got 3 stripes. So these are the 2 siblings. And what I like here is these 3 little trenches you can see. Just bare, well, the light's just right. There you go. Those 3 little cuts out in there. Those 3 little cutouts right there. And if you got your hand on it, very often my index finger comes right there, right over those, and grabs on quite well. It's a little hard to see sometimes with that black. Here's another knife. This is the F756. And you can see those cuts the cutouts a little bit better using the green instead of the black. And so basically, if you wanted to take those out of there, you just take your knife and into the corner of one and just sort of gently lift up so you don't bend the G10, the green stuff. And they come out quite easily. They're just press fit in there. There's no adhesive or anything. They're just pressed in there. Fits in the hand really, really well. I really like how good this feels. 440C stainless steel. The knife's made in China. We've got the anodized hardware, the blue stuff, just like we had back when they first started doing the Firebird line. This is one of the early ones in the series of the Firebird line. You've got your Firebird logo there and the Ganzo logo there. The newer ones have Firebird and then they say made by Ganzo. So this is a little bit older of the knife, but it's less than a year old still, or right around a year old. You got a nice sharpener's choil there. And, you know, a little bit of skeletonization in the liners. Let's show you a picture of the knife taken apart. So there you go. It looks good. It's got a little bit of weight reduction there, and it's a nice, big, full-size flipper. But, like I said before, it flips okay, but you can hear it. It's not flipping with a super amount of authority. There, it didn't go all the way. There you go. See that? It doesn't always go all the way, and that's because it's got a fairly weak detent that's holding it. I wish the detent on this guy was just a little bit stronger. I'll be trying to fix that myself later on, but I like to show you what it's like from the factory. Other than the cutting edge, I did sharpen the cutting edge myself because the cutting edge is not something you have to live with. Whatever the factory does on your cutting edge, that's less than 1% of the life of your knife. Sharpen it the way you want it, and that's what I did, and that's how I'm going to show you how well this thing cuts. But before we do the cutting stuff, let's do the dimensions. Cutting edge, 8.9 centimeters, 3.5 inches. Blade length from the end of the handle to the tip, 9.3 centimeters, 3.65 inches. The thickness of the blade here, 3.22 millimeters. That's 0.127 inches. The thickness of the edge behind the grind, and I measure about an inch from the handle up the blade. That's my favorite spot to measure because that part of the knife is what gets used the most. 0.76 millimeters. That's 0.03 of an inch. That's a bit too thick. I really wish it was less than that. This knife isn't large enough for it to need such a thick end of the blade there. Handle length, 12 centimeters, 4.73 inches. Grip area is 10.2 centimeters, 4 inches. The handle thickness, not counting the pocket clip, 1.4 centimeters, 0.54 inches. So standard thickness for a Ganzo knife. The total length of the knife with the blade deployed is 21.3 centimeters, 8.4 inches. This just under 8.5 inch knife weighs 149 grams, which is 5.3 ounces. That's with the skeletonizing that's in there. They could have gone a little more aggressive on the skeletonizing. They did skeletonize the show side liner a bit. The working liner here with the liner lock, they didn't do any skeletonizing, and I wish they would have done some skeletonizing on the liner on this side. That would have been a really good thing, and that would help this knife be just a little bit lighter, maybe even under 5 ounces, which would be a good thing. How much are you going to pay for this knife? Well, this knife costs $19.07 Canadian right now, $15.24 US. In euros, it's 12.96, 12.96. And in pounds, it's 11 pounds, 0.65. And there is a shipping fee that gets added onto this. I don't know why this liner lock flipper is a little bit cheaper than most of Ganzo's knives. It doesn't really make sense to me, but it is what it is. I think a lot of people really like flippers. I think Ganzo is not aware of how much people in the western part of this world, English-speaking world, like flippers, but a lot of people do. They're good for, you know, right and left hand, but it also has the thumb stud, so you can deploy it with a thumb stud if you want to. I actually tend to use thumb studs over flippers if I've got the choice for both. Although sometimes when I've got a really good flipper, if it also has thumb studs, I'll take the thumb studs off, and then the thumb studs can just never get in the way. These thumb studs are not really in the way. Sometimes the thumb studs for knives end up being out too far, and if the thumb stud were out here, then when you're cutting through things, it could get in the way, and you're cutting through something and bang, it's going to stop on the thumb stud and it gets in the way for cutting. But this thumb stud is way back here. You've got your sharpener's choil there, and then if you go straight up, from this point, it just barely comes in contact with the side of that thumb stud, which means when you're using this thing to slice, you're probably not going to have any problem at all with that thumb stud getting in the way. It just won't. It's a beautiful knife, I think. If you want to sneak up and do some work that way, you've got this nice dip in the spine of the blade right here to rest your thumb up here. And that really helps for doing some of that close-up work. And when you're working hard, as I said before, that jimping there really gives you good purchase to give you really good grab there. The knife is comfortable on almost any kind of grip that you want to use. This grip is pretty good, not super solid, because as you can see on this side, it's not the best grip that way. But if you turn it back this way, if you want your knife forward with the back grip, that's really, really good. You get a really good purchase on that grip. With the fact of you having two choils there, I found it works really well if you need extra reach. Put your index finger in that choil, and now you've got a longer reach knife. Who knows when you're going to meet up with a rabid dog or, a coyote or something that you just need to defend yourself a little bit. I'm just talking about the context where I live. I live in rural Alberta, and there's wild animals here, even mountain lions. Generally, they don't come this far out of the mountains up to the town where I live, but they've been not too many miles away from our town. So that's about this knife. The pocket clip, I'll show you how that looks. I really wish they would have made it a 4-way pocket clip somehow, but it's kind of hard to do with this big dramatic pivot screw that they've put in here. I'll give you a close-up shot of that if you haven't seen one lately. I like this blue anodized hardware a little bit. It just doesn't seem to go that well with this green, does it? That green and this blue just, I don't know, it's a bit clashy to me. The, the black with the blue, that looks good. You can get it with orange and the blue. I'll show you what that looks like. There's some good professional sports teams that have these colors, orange and that blue. That kind of looks good. Between these three color options, I really like these two better than the green, but some of you guys really like green. So what do I think of this knife? I like it. It's a nice knife. Detent needs to be made a little stronger. Other than that, it's a really good knife. Thickness of the edge behind the grind, a little too thick. I can deal with it. I keep my knives pretty sharp, and so they're pretty much at the ready all the time anyways. I'll show you how it cuts. Here we've got 4 layers of paracord, and it cuts through that pretty well. It would do a bit better if it was a bit thinner behind the edge. I've got my 1-inch wide banding, like Molly type banding. Cuts through that very well, no problems. I've got some paper. Now, paper tends to always cut well if you've got a nice sharp edge. The thickness behind the grind doesn't really affect paper because paper's so flimsy, it just sort of cuts at the edge and then gets out of the way. The knife is very sharp for cutting. You can just go straight down. That made that thing throw up some strands of paracord. This is 7-strand paracord. Cuts very well, especially when you finish sharpening it. I sharpened mine on my TS Prof K02 sharpening system. I like that knife an awful lot. that knife. I like that knife sharpener an awful lot. I'm very thankful that I have it. It's a great investment. I've ordered some optional parts for it. Hopefully those parts will come in soon, and then I will do the full review on that thing. How does this knife look in the pocket? Because I've talked about that pocket clip already. There you go. Doesn't look bad. You've got just under 1 inch of the knife sticking out. About a little over 1.5 centimeters, or right around 1.5 centimeters sticking out. You know, wish there was less, but this makes it very easy to grab and pull out of your pocket if you need to. It grabs the pocket quite well. It won't let go until you want it to. And then when you grab it, she's ready to go. This is a nice knife. I like this knife. If you're looking for a flipper and you like Ganzo, I think the price is very good. Under 20 Canadian, just over 15 US. Where else can you spend 15 US and get a 8.5 inch knife that feels really good, that has great grip in the hand, that's got a big flat grind, you know, and the flipper works fairly well. Pocket clip works great. You know, it's hard to find something like that, especially with 440C stainless steel. It's a little bit better than the Chinese 8CR13 MOV, and I like it. Thanks so much for watching. Please use the links below the video if you want to buy one. That helps this channel out with a little bit of funds. I get a tiny referral fee if you use those links, and that helps out an awful lot. So thank you so much for watching. Thanks for liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. Please do all of those things. That really does help. And remember, always cut towards your chum and not your thumb.